The anime opens with the Holy Book Testament, which tells the story of mankind in the past. In the past, there was a conflict that caused only a part of the earth called the Far East to be habitable. Elsewhere, on a ship called Musashi was a teacher named Oreo, who decided to start training with her third-year class of students who were made up of different races. However, as she began to check on her students, she realized that several of them had been absent, and their classmates began to give excuses for their absences. Oreo begins to listen to the reasons and decides to start explaining the rules of the training, which consists of trying to hurt her before she gets to an office, and that whoever succeeds in hurting her can miss 5 days of school. The students are enthusiastic and Oreo begins the test. As the test begins, the students begin to follow her, using their skills such as spells and contracts, to attack Oreo. However, she dodges all the attacks easily. At that, a girl named Dela manages to catch up with Oreo and attacks her with a spear. But Oreo dodges each of her attacks and then throws her against one of her companions, knocking them out. After this, Oreo continues to run and a student named Tenzu appears, who uses his ninja style to create a distraction and helps Yuruki ambush the teacher. However, Oreo stretches out his weapon and manages to neutralize Yuruki. Suddenly, another student named Nori appears and tries to strike him, but Oreo easily stops him. Then, a girl named Asama appears, who uses her bow and initiates her contract with Mouse, thus launching a strong projectile. But Oreo notices the shot, so he creates a strategy to stop the projectile easily. Afterwards, Oreo manages to get closer and closer to his target. But then, two witches named Margit and Naru appear and try to shoot using magic. But Oreo manages to evade their attack. On the other hand, the president of the academy, Sakai, is observing the test. Sakai is standing next to a doll named Musashi, who is in charge of the ship's arrangements. Musashi tells him that the ship is heading towards Mika. In this story, there is an international organization called the Testament Union, which watches over the history of mankind by keeping the Testament book protected and which also announced that the end of the world was near. Back at the test, Oreo makes it to the finish line, and then the students arrive totally exhausted and defeated. Suddenly, a demon appears and Oreo tells his students that the real lesson is to teach them how to defeat one and begins to fight the demon while explaining to his students, until he knocks it out. Suddenly, the student council president and Musashi's chancellor, named AI Tori, appears, who is the protagonist. AI explains to his classmates that he decided to skip class to buy an erotic game, causing Oreo to become angry with him. However, AI misunderstands his words and decides to show him what he has learned from his video games by grabbing Oreo's breasts, causing him to be shocked. After that, AI tells her classmates that she plans to confess to the girl she likes. However, Kimmy, who is AI's older sister, starts laughing, as she thinks he will confess to some video game character. But AI begins to deny it and reveals that he will confess his love to a girl named Horizon, causing everyone to be surprised. At that, Kimmy mentions that Horizon died 10 years ago, to which AI tells him that he already knows, but he's still completely determined to do it tomorrow. Suddenly, Oreo interrupts the conversation and kicks AI in the rib, sending him flying far away. On the other hand, there was a doll named P1 outside a shop, watering some dark creatures. Suddenly, a girl named Seju appears and falls unconscious. Seeing this, P1 decides to tell her boss. Yoshi, the boss, welcomes Seju and feeds her, starting a conversation. Seju reveals that she is the vice president of the student council, and because she is more responsible than AI, she was put in charge of accompanying Sakai and Mika. Yoshi reveals that AI hasn't set foot in his shop in 10 years. However, since P1 arrived, he has started coming every morning. Afterwards, Yoshi recommends Seju to visit the Path of Remorse. The third-year boys are in their classroom. At that, Oreo asks a blind girl named Suzu to explain the Unification War. Suzu replies that the divine state of the Far East was separated from the harmonic states. Suddenly, AI interrupts, mentioning that if she makes a mistake, he will take her punishment, causing everyone to start disrupting the class. At that, Asama stands up and continues the story. Asama mentions that the war caused the harmonic states to unite with the divine state, forming only one habitable zone on Earth, which separates into several kingdoms representing different ancient nations and is mediated by the Testament Union. Finishing the explanation, AI gets up and tells everyone that she will have a party in the evening to celebrate her confession and asks everyone to gather at the school to hold the celebration. Suddenly, Asama mentions that there have been a lot of ghosts in the school lately, to which AI tells him that they will have to exorcise them. At that point, Oreo interrupts, telling him that he must pay for Suzu's punishment, as she got a little piece of history wrong, so she forces him to strip in front of his classmates. Meanwhile, the king of Musashi, Yoshino, approaches the hall accompanied by a new student named Izuma, the son of the Emperor of the Far East. Yoshino opens the door to find AI stark naked. Oreo notices his presence and quickly closes the door. He then reopens the door and pretends that everything is fine. Elsewhere, Seju goes to the cemetery and meets P1, and they start talking. At that, Seju tells him that she came to visit her mother's grave, as she comes from Mika. Seju reveals that her family subjected her to a gender change, as she was supposed to represent her family in Mika's internal affairs as a man. However, the final surgery was cancelled, so she only lost her breasts. Seju mentions that Mika placed her trust in automaton dolls and her family was forced to elope to Musashi. After that, the ship starts to warn that they are already close to Mika. At that, another ship appears, which starts transmitting the image of Mika's lord named Matsu to Musashi. Matsu says that he has prepared some fireworks for everyone. Then, Musashi officially lands on Mika. Therefore, Sakai and Seju go to a meeting point and on the way they come across the ship of Sentius, who is the president of the Testament Union and representative of Italy. Mika reveals that it is to negotiate the development of a capital sin, which are 8 powerful weapons that are inspired by the sins. Then, Seju tells Sakai that she wishes to visit the path of remorse. Sakai replies that she can go right now, so the two of them separate. Afterwards, Sakai begins to walk through a forest in Mika and there she crosses paths with 2 former companions named Saki and Tada. In the middle of it all, a girl named Fudeo, Tada's daughter, appears and attacks her. However, Sakai easily evades her attack and, finding an opening, begins to grope her, causing her to become nervous. At that, Sakai starts laughing and talking to his old friends. On the other hand, Kimi is sitting on the stairs watching AI, who is trying to enter the path of remorse. Meanwhile, Seju meets Margit, who invites her to the party they will have in the evening, and before leaving, gives her a game to give to AI. Seju visits the road of remorse and on the way she meets a carriage where her father is. Her father begins to talk to her, but at that moment AI appears running in fear. However, he stops when he sees Seju and then thanks her for bringing him the game and then leaves. Suddenly, a companion of Seju's father is surprised as he did not expect to meet the Pathmaster and reveals that Lord Matsu had a daughter named Horizon, who accidentally died on the path of remorse while he was with AI, causing Seju to be shocked. Later that night, the students gather outside the academy and start talking about the exorcism they are about to perform. But at that, AI comes out of the school and tells them that everything is ready, so the students start walking through the corridors of the school and start running into monsters that are apparently in disguise. However, the students start to scare them away using their abilities, causing a big commotion in the academy and leaving the school. Several monsters begin to flee from the school. But at that moment, King Yoshino appears completely annoyed and upon seeing Suzu, he begins to interrogate her, causing her to panic. But at that moment, AI appears to interrupt him and the king begins to lecture him. However, the discussion is interrupted when Suzu starts pointing to a place and everyone realizes that behind Azuma there is a ghost girl, who starts crying because she can't find her parents. On the other hand, Sakai is drinking with his old friends and invites Fudeo to the Musashi Academy, since she could study with her cousin Seju there. However, Tada interrupts her and tells her that Fudeo is already part of Mika's guard, so she must first complete certain missions before she can enroll in Musashi. Suddenly, an automaton doll named Kazuno appears, which possesses the spirit of Tada's wife. At that, Kazuno begins to lecture him and Sakai also disrespects Tada. However, Kazuno threatens her with a magic stick, as she does not allow anyone to insult her master besides her, and after that Tada decides to leave. Outside the restaurant, Sakai asks Saki about the android P1. Saki asks him if he knows the being that calls souls, causing Sakai to become confused. On the other hand, Tada finds himself in a desolate street with Kazuno, and they start talking about a Spanish guy named Mune. Then, Tada mentions that he will never be able to see Mune fight against his daughter. At that, Kazuno tells him that they are ready to set off the fireworks and Tada leaves the place. Suddenly, Kazuno summons several dolls and orders them to carry out their mission. Each of them are separated, and then Kazuno contacts Matsu and tells him that everything is going according to plan. Later that night, Tada finds himself outside Mika's castle and orders the dolls to begin the ambush. The dolls launch the attack and begin to ambush several Spanish guards around the castle. On the other hand, Sakai receives some papers from a doll, which were written by Saki. But when he sees them, he realizes that they are blank, so he starts to run. After a few minutes, he arrives at Saki's room and notices that there is a strange symbol on the wall. After that, he notices that the papers have something written on them when exposed to the moonlight, managing to read the words Nikaido Mark and Genesis Project on 2 sheets. After reading this, Sakai starts looking for Saki, but on the way he runs into Tada and Kazuno, in that they begin to pass by the skies some giant robots called Gods of the War. And then Sakai hears a great noise that comes from the tectonic plates, to what Tada tells Sakai that they will begin a melting by orders of Matsu, since they plan to destroy Mika, causing that Sakai is surprised. Tada tells him that there is no one left in Mika besides the dolls in them. Sakai then stands guard. But at that, Tada tells him that he doesn't have time to fight him, as he must stop the Testament Union members who are trying to ruin his plans, and leaves. Suddenly, the reactor in Mika's castle begins to emit a huge light into the sky, which can be seen from Musashi. At that, Seju also notices the light, and there appears P1 along with her pets who, upon seeing her, Seju decides to take her with her to another location to find out what is going on. Meanwhile, several Testament Union soldiers try to stop the explosion, but Kazuno appears and begins to intercept them all using his powers. He then creates swords from the ground to fight the Gods of War and manages to fight them despite their huge size difference. In the middle of the fight, a God of War fires a cannon at Kazuno, but she manages to stop it with a spell and fires it back at him, causing the God of War to be knocked out. Then, another God of War appears. At that, Tada appears and casts his Boki, incapacitating the remaining robots. Then, Tada and Kazuno head towards the castle. But at that, she notices something strange, so she tries to deflect an unknown attack. However, this causes half of her body to be destroyed in the process. Mune, the cause of the attack, claims to be there on behalf of the Testament Union in Spain and reveals that she possesses the weapon of laziness, which is part of the 8 deadly sins. Mune then asks Tada to surrender. However, Tada responds by using his Boki, but Mune dodges the attack easily, as he knows that Boki can cut whatever is reflected in its blade. Therefore, he decides to avoid seeing his reflection. At that moment, the castle starts to open up, and Matsu, who is broadcasting to the world, appears and tells Mune that he only has 5 minutes to stop the explosion of the reactors. Mune asks him why he wants to destroy Mika, to which Matsu replies that he does it because it's interesting, as he finds it fun to think of something life-threatening, and that stopping the end of the world would be the most entertaining thing to do. Matsu mentions that one way to avoid this would be to unite the deadly sins, and Mune tells him that in that case the nations would fight over the 8 weapons, to which Matsu replies that they are not really 8 weapons, as he created a 9th one that represents jealousy, and was united to a soul. At that point, he reveals that P1 possesses Horizon's soul, and that she happens to be the 9th sin that is able to absorb the other weapons. Upon hearing this, AI starts running to find Horizon, and several of his companions accompany him. Meanwhile, Mune tries to stop Matsu, but Tada won't let him. So the two start fighting again and begin to exchange different attacks while using strategies to win. But after several minutes, Mune falls into Kazuno's trap, who starts to use a spell to lock him in a wooden prison. At that point, Tada manages to use the Boki and defeats Mune. However, he activates his weapon before he is defeated, which turns into a cannon aimed at the castle. Kazuno gives his soul to Tada, and upon receiving it, the doll begins to shut down. But before it does, Tada throws it towards the cannon so that she gets shot. And with the help of the Boki, they both manage to deflect the power of the sloth's gun. After that, Mune's wife Jin appears and starts talking to Tada. At that, she tells him that she is forbidden to fight, so she only appeared to get Mune back. Tada gives her the Boki and asks her to give it to Fudeo if she really wants a rematch, to which she accepts and leaves. On the other hand, Seju is standing next to Horizon, but at that moment a ship appears to arrest her in order to extract the sin of jealousy. Suddenly, AI arrives on the scene, but is shot by a soldier with his friends. Horizon decides to leave with the military so as not to cause any more trouble. So AI starts to get upset, and seeing a soldier trying to eliminate AI, Seju decides to move and kicks AI to knock him unconscious so he won't cause any more trouble. After this, Mika begins to be destroyed by a huge explosion, which causes the death of Matsu and Tada, who before dying tells Kazuno that they will be together forever. Days after the conflict in Mika, Sakai finds himself talking to Musashi and tells him that Horizon has been condemned to commit suicide. Since being the daughter of Matsu, she must bear the responsibilities of ruler and of having lost the capital Mika. At that moment, the vice president of Italy, Galileo, appears, who comes with Sentius and begins to talk to Sakai, mentioning that Italy will recover everything it has lost, which makes Sakai angry. On the other hand, the boys gather in the classroom and start talking about the political and economic problems that Horizon's death will bring to the world. Suddenly, a girl named Heidi mentions that Musashi's academy has lost its authority in politics, and the only one who maintains this power is Seju. At that, Heidi asks the opinion of a student named Shiro, who is an expert in economics and the market. Shiro immediately gets up from his seat and starts explaining what could happen if they rebel against Testament Union. After giving the negative reasons, he mentions that they should ask Seju for help, as it is the only way to save Horizon and Musashi at the same time. But the conversation is interrupted by Oreo, who proceeds to turn on the TV in the living room and shows them a live broadcast of a meeting between Italy and Spain, where Jin is meeting with Fudeo to hand over the Boki. At that point, Fudeo tries to attack her, but Mune intervenes and hands the spear to Fudeo, who, upon receiving it, decides to retreat. After this, Oreo asks the students to write an essay about what they want to do. Oreo then asks Suzu to read hers, so Suzu asks Asama to read it for her. Asama reads that Suzu was afraid to climb stairs when she was little, but at that time she was helped by AI and Horizon. Suddenly, Suzu starts crying and reveals that she wishes AI and Horizon were together, so she interrupts the reading and asks AI to save Horizon. At that, AI tells her that he had already planned to save her and then mentions that he decided to help her that time because he thinks she is very kind. Oreo interrupts the conversation to talk to AI, but he starts to slack off and bother her, so Oreo hits him hard and then wraps him in a tablecloth so they can talk about rescuing Horizon. And their Shiro proposes to challenge Seiji using the motion of Sentry, so they decide to have a meeting with her. Meanwhile, Azuma is taking care of the ghosts. At that, a girl named Miriam, who is part of AI's class as well, enters the room. She tells Azuma that he should be mindful of his position as prince, as the current state of the Far East is in chaos. However, Miriam tells him that he must rely on the boys for now. On the other hand, the Musashi students are outside the academy, as they are about to begin a debate that will be broadcast around the world. Seju is joined by two girls named Mito and Nao. Nao explains that she is on Seju's side to represent the engineering club, as it depends on the Testament Union. Then, Mito mentions that she belongs to the group of noble knights and for that reason she joined Seju, as she must avoid actions that could cost the lives of many people. Shiro mentions to Seju that she will represent the Testament Union and they will represent the Musashi, as in this era political issues are supervised by the students. At that, Oreo begins to explain the rules of the meeting, mentioning that each side will have 3 representatives and that the team that gets 2 wins will win. He further explains that, if Seju wins, then Horizon will be left to die. However, if Musashi wins, then they will go and save her. Suddenly, Oreo's partner mentions that they can try to convince themselves as they wish. Therefore, Nao decides to go first, as she wants to know how Musashi plans to fight, lacking armaments. Nao summons a god of war called Suzaku. At that, Shiro decides to go for Musashi's side, so Nao launches an attack on him. But Shiro stops the attack and explains that his ability is based on the contract of goods, so he gets the power of some soldiers by paying them with money. After a long fight through Musashi City, Shiro manages to take down the Suzaku, which causes Nao to fall in defeat. At that, Shiro offers Nao a job for the entire engineering club, as Musashi must keep flying so that he can keep generating money, so Shiro reaches out to her and considers her an ally. Then, Mito offers to be the second participant, and knowing that she is a knight whose duty is to protect them, the boys decide to send Suzu, causing Mito to be surprised to see her. But then Mito kneels down before her, and upon seeing this, the secretary of the council named Neshin asks Suzu to stop her, as Mito plans to lose. But if she does so, Musashi will be left without knights, so they would have no way to fight the Testament Union. So Suzu tries to stop her, but at that she stumbles. Seeing this, Mito stops her statement to help her friend, causing her to accidentally win the match. Then, Mito tells AI that she wishes to serve as a special agent, and as they are evenly matched, they decide to start the final match between Seju and AI. Suddenly, AI decides to make her position clear and mentions that they should forget the idea of saving Horizon, causing everyone watching this debate on the broadcast to be shocked, including AI's own colleagues. AI states that she took the opposite stance so that Seju would have to defend Horizon. Seju starts talking about the positive motives that will bring about saving her and mentions that it is not fair for Horizon to bear Matsu's sins, as she had not become the ruler when the conflict in Mika occurred. Therefore, he mentions that the remaining part of Mika can be attached to Musashi, and that way she could be saved as well. But when she starts to convince the citizens, Sentius appears to interrupt her and decides to have a direct debate with Seju. Seju demonstrates her best arguments about Horizon's position. However, Sentius begins to knock Seju out of the argument and reveals her true gender and history in front of her peers, destroying her image completely. AI interrupts the debate and is excited to see that Seju is really a girl, so he pulls down her trousers to confirm that she is, causing her to be embarrassed. After this, AI tells Sentius that he decides to trust Seju, since she gave him arguments that give him a chance to save Horizon, which causes Seju to regain confidence and mentions that from now on Musashi will function as an independent state in the Far East, since that way they can search for the 8 deadly sins together with Horizon and thus prevent the end of the world. In addition, there is an international benefit to be gained by saving Horizon. Sentius tells Seju that they have no right to have so much power. But at that, Seju reveals that the sins are formed by Horizon's feelings and that she is willing to return them to him. But upon hearing this, Sentius decides to send Galileo to the academy. And upon seeing him, Yuriki launches an attack on him. However, Galileo stops him using the sin of lust, which destroys Yuriki's weapon in a second. Suddenly, Nori tries to hit him with his fists, but it does nothing and Galileo knocks them both down using his gravity ability. She then teleports in front of Seju ready to take her out, and AI rushes in to protect her. However, Fudeo parries Galileo's attack and appears as a guard. Suddenly, Yoshino appears and proceeds to ask Sentius to withdraw Galileo. He then tells him that he wants to see if any of the students are able to defeat Fudeo as a demonstration. At that point, Oreo interrupts the conversation and mentions the AI and Seju had valid arguments, so the third match ends in a draw, so the tiebreaker will be a fight against Fudeo, so Kimi decides to offer himself as an opponent. At that, AI asks Yoshino to make him king if Kimi wins, to which Yoshino says no, completely angry. Then, the fight between Kimi and Fudeo begins. Kimi summons his mouse, which allows him to use his magical abilities and starts dancing. Seeing this, Fudeo tries to attack her, but realizes that Kimi easily dodged his attack. Kimi then creates a ritual where she starts chanting, increasing her defense level, and making Fudeo's powerful attacks less effective. Kimi begins to remember the moment when Horizon died. In the past, Kimi observes her brother completely depressed and decides to beat and mistreat him, as she wanted her brother to show his feelings again, and after making him understand that he is still alive, she sees how AI starts to cry again, causing her to cry with him as well. In the present, Fudeo uses Bulky's ability. However, this only destroys Kimi's clothes, and she tells Fudeo that she needs to have more power to hurt her and starts slapping Fudeo while telling her about the mistakes she made during the fight. In the end, she reminds Fudeo that she serves the ruler of Mika, which means she must protect Horizon, to which Fudeo responds by getting down on her knees and thanks Kimi for her advice, causing the Musashi Academy to win the debate. Yoshino then returns authority to the academy and appoints 2 viceroys as his assistants, who turn out to be AI and Horizon, causing Sentius to become upset. Suddenly, Seju mentions that in 6 months there will be an important meeting and they can deliberate about the future of Musashi and Far East. But until then they will remain at war with the Testament Union. For that reason, the boys decide to go and rescue Horizon by force. So AI sets off and all his companions decide to follow him. But before they leave, they meet Sakai, who gives AI a letter of inscription for him to give to Horizon when they meet. He then asks everyone to return alive. The boys begin to prepare to face the Testament Union, and AI contacts the Musashi Knights for more soldiers, who are led by Neshin. As they are in position, everyone starts to wonder where AI is, and they realize that he is at the front of the ranks. AI tells everyone that they are taking too long and begins to run towards the enemy base on his own, and the others begin to follow him. As he opens the door, he notices a platoon of enemies on the other side, who begin to open fire as soon as they see him. Musashi's soldiers try to protect him with their shields, but the testament pulls out a more powerful cannon, and when he fires the projectile it accidentally hits Dele's armor, and they all realize that his armor is very strong. So they decide to use Dele as a shield to keep moving forward. On the other side, enemy ships start firing at Musashi and Neshin's group begins to protect the city from the projectiles. Suddenly, the main ship fires an ether cannon and Musashi Doll uses a powerful defense spell, which deflects the shot. However, the ship begins to charge another much stronger shot, so Asama decides to take action and uses her own mouse, causing her to fire a powerful projectile, with which she manages to stop the enemy ship's shot and damage it. But at that moment we see how a god of war appears, so Neshin asks Margit and Naru to take care of him. So they transform and with their new powers they begin to fight against the robot, starting an aerial battle. And after a few minutes, we see how Naru manages to get an opening, so she manages to leave a crack in the robot's neck. However, the god of war wounds Margit and knocks Naru down. At that, she tries to eliminate Margot, but several of Musashi's people communicate with her and ask her not to surrender, causing Margit to react and start using black and white magic at the same time. He then fires multiple bolts of lightning at the robot, causing one of them to hit the crack left by Naru, causing the god of war to be completely destroyed. After the fight, Naru embraces Margit and they kiss. Meanwhile, Ai's group is having trouble, so Ai decides to call for help by shouting to the heavens. At that moment, Nao and Mido appear from the sky, riding the Suzaku. Mido rushes onto the battlefield using his chains, causing great damage to the enemy troops. And after arriving, Mido begins to defeat several soldiers with his skills. Then, Nao arrives with the Suzaku and asks everyone to step forward, as she can take care of the soldiers on her own. So they all go ahead and manage to reach the port of ships. But there they are stopped by Galileo and his soldiers from Italy, and the two sides begin to clash. But then Sentius appears, who possesses the weapon of lust, so he activates it and creates a huge magic field which renders the people he considers an enemy helpless and powerless. Musashi's soldiers are left unarmed and weak, so Italy's army takes advantage of this and begins to defeat Musashi's people one by one. Ai notices that despite being at a disadvantage, his soldiers still do not give up, so he decides to use his ability. So he contacts Asama and asks him to approve his contract, and Asama shows himself as a representative, and this releases Ai's power, which allows him to share his potential with the other people, causing the soldiers to recover a little of their strength to continue fighting. Suddenly, Yoshino realizes why Ai asked him to be king, since now that he is viceroy he owns a quarter of Musashi, causing him to be able to use a quarter of the ship's ether reserves. But since it is a contract, Ai must offer his happiness in return, so if he becomes unhappy and sad, he will die immediately. However, Ai asks everyone not to worry. At that, Seju appears and asks Sentius for a duel and he accepts and deactivates the lust ability, starting to run towards Seju, causing Musashi's soldiers to regain the upper hand. On the other side, Nori encounters Galileo again. Galileo uses his orbital movement spell, which easily knocks Nori down, but he gets back to his feet, so Galileo tries to use his spell again. However, Nori destroys the spell with a punch and reveals that his contract is based on offering 2 fists as an offering, so that the third will be much stronger. Nori then mentions that Galileo's spell only works on a flat surface, so Yuruki appears from the sky and makes a surprise attack, managing to wound Galileo. At that, Nori gives him the final blow and takes him down easily. Meanwhile, Seju is waiting for Sentius, but upon seeing him, she immediately gives up. Sentius tells her that she has already lost to him twice and then asks her to wear women's clothes before leaving, causing Seju to be surprised to hear this. Seju then contacts Neshin and mentions that he has been unable to communicate with Fudeo. Neshin then reveals that he has met Mune and that they were both preparing to fight and defend their respective sides, so they both start fighting with their weapons. Then, Fudeo tries to use Boki's ability. However, Mune neutralizes her and manages to knock Fudeo down, causing her to become unconscious. Then, Mune uses the ability of laziness to damage part of Musashi, as Musashi will not be able to take off, and they will have to surrender. Suddenly, Fudeo begins to remember the training she had with her father and stands up again and tells Mune that she must protect the ruler she serves. For that reason, she attacks Mune again and he realizes that now she is fighting in a different way. So, after a hard fight, Fudeo manages to get an opening and manages to hit Mune consecutively, knocking him down in the process. She then spares his life as he did the same for her, so she just retrieves the lazy weapon and retreats. On the other hand, AI manages to reach the prison where Horizon is, who appears and asks AI to leave. She then tells him that if he touches the barrier that separates the two of them, he will die, as it will send him to the moment he regrets and he will be disintegrated unless he denies the memory. Afterwards, she tells AI that she doesn't want to be a problem for the world, to which he responds by telling her that the world doesn't matter any more than she does, so he is willing to become the king of the world, in order to take back all the sins and restore Horizon's emotions. At that, he confesses to Horizon that he is in love with her. However, Horizon tells him that she lacks human emotions and mentions to him that she strongly disagrees with being saved, to which AI realizes that this is what she should do. So she starts to make a turn in the debate and say the opposite of what he wants her to answer, as that way Horizon will start to show a disagreement that will benefit AI, and will manage to convince Horizon to be saved despite being a doll. But at that they are interrupted by Sentius, who again uses the power of lust. However, the magic field is instantly destroyed by Fudeo, who appears to protect his sovereign. Suddenly, AI gets careless and accidentally breaks through the prison barrier, and upon contact with Horizon's chest, they are both sent back to AI's memory, where Horizon is about to die and reveals that she died because of AI, as Horizon made her breakfast that day, and when AI told her that she didn't like it, she left her house crying, so AI decided to follow her. At that, AI's arm and Horizon's arm start to disintegrate, so she tells him that he must find a way to deny his sin. AI mentions to him that the Horizon of the past ran away from him. However, Horizon denies it and tells him that she just wanted to hide, and then flashes him a smile. At that, Horizon mentions that he told her that he would come for her at that time. So AI, to deny his sin, reaches out to Horizon and asks him to come with him. So they both hold hands, and in that way they manage to destroy the barrier and return unharmed. AI then shows him the letter of enrollment for the academy, and Horizon presses the option to accept, whereupon Seju announces that she is now under Musashi's protection, causing Sentius to become angry. Suddenly, a large ship appears and now is on it, who proceeds to cast a net for Musashi's soldiers to board the ship and return to Musashi. However, Sentius mentions that they are still on the outside, so their entry to the academy is not yet complete. He sends his soldiers in a ship to stop them, but as they try to get closer, Fudeo uses the Boki to cause damage to the enemy ship and an aerial battle begins. AI's group tries to get to Musashi as quickly as possible, and Sentius' ship begins to charge an ether beam. However, AI and Horizon appear on the deck of the ship, and Horizon begins to use the laziness weapon, with which he releases a power that collides with the ether beam. But in that they begin to be outmatched, as Horizon cannot activate his soul. However, AI tells her that he is there to support her, and upon hearing these words, Horizon begins to cry and her soul activates. AI uses his ability, causing the laziness beam to become much more powerful, and they manage to destroy Sentius' ship, ending the conflict with Testament Union. Afterwards, AI hugs Horizon and tells him that once they get all their emotions, she will be very happy. At night, Sakai is walking with Oreo and Musashi, but when they reach the Road of Remorse, they come across a Nikaido mark. At that moment they realize that a ship is passing near them, which belongs to a nation called Oda. Suddenly, 6 demons are seen on the deck of the ship, who are just passing by to show Musashi that they can break through his defense easily, and then retreat. On the other hand, Seju is walking with Maido. Seju mentions that she's going to England to make connections, and they both run into all the kids outside Yoshi's shop, as they are all celebrating that they managed to save Horizon. At that, it is revealed that Yoshi is AI and Kimi's mother, and after chatting for a bit, Seju enters the shop and notices that AI is sleeping with Horizon as they hold hands. Elsewhere, Jin is in Spain, where they plan to banish Mune. However, Jin asks the vice president for permission to go into battle, so that she can save her husband. At that moment, a group of special soldiers enter the court, and Musashi begins to be invaded the next day by Spain, as several elite soldiers make their appearance and begin to cause great destruction along with Jin. However, Musashi's students prepare to fight as well. Meanwhile, AI observes everything together with Horizon and Seju while naked. And so ends the anime.